Do you feel like a beginning songwriter? Someone who has a desire to write songs but has never really gotten started? I can relate to you, and I want to give you some encouragement today. My name is Meg Ammons, singer, songwriter, worship leader, and just from my years of experience, I think some of the things I've learned could really help you. Real quick, I have social media. If you follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or my YouTube channel, you'll probably find a lot more things that may encourage you. I have an in-depth video course I've put together called Worship Songwriting. If you like what you hear today, I encourage you to check it out and consider that. It has a lot more instruction, a lot of nuts and bolts about songwriting, and if you're really interested in moving forward, I think it can help you. If you're still not quite sure, today I can also offer you a free single video lesson called Quick Tips for Songwriters, and you'll probably find a lot of useful things there that will help you as well. So I hope you make use of both those things. Okay, so now, beginners. A beginner songwriter is a special person my heart really goes out to. I remember from a really young age, I just loved songwriting. Ideas would just pop into my mind, lyrics, and usually with a little melody associated with it, and I would just remember them in my head. And even in grade school, I would write them down. I would sing them for my family. I could probably still recall some of them today. And as I grew older, I remember like high school, getting a guitar to teach myself some chords. I would play around a little on the piano. I had some ability, not great ability, but I could hear enough to figure out, at least a melody for a song if I really wanted to. But mostly it was just in my head and on paper and kind of my secret world. So I think that's one clue that you might be a songwriter. If you feel like you have a secret world of songwriting, whether anyone has ever heard, whether anyone has ever recommended or recognized it in you, whether you've ever had a chance to perform, you might be a songwriter, not a performer. But if you have a secret world of songwriting inside of you, then you're a songwriter, and you should chase that. It's a great gift, I believe, and it's something satisfying, and it's something that you can grow in no matter where you are right now. As a beginner, you can begin and move forward and find a lot of satisfaction and joy in using this ability. It doesn't matter what the community you have. I think the truest test of songwriter is what you do with it, whether you have praise for it or recognition for it at all. My story was that for years, friends and family knew I wrote songs, and I didn't have a huge outlet. I didn't have a huge platform to say, hey, I've written a new song, everyone come listen. Things are kind of different now, and actually easier now for people that want to do that. But it developed very much for me in private, and that's okay, and I love it, and I still love the private aspect for me of songwriting. So you may find that, and maybe as a beginner songwriter, it feels so personal that you may want to keep it private, and that's okay. That's a great way to get started. So a little bit of advice for you if you want to write songs. Part of what I would just tell anyone is just to start, no matter where you are, with the level of ability that you feel like you have or you wish you had. None of that really matters. It's just that you start where you are. You can start with a pencil and paper. You can start with a computer document. You can start with a note on your phone. It doesn't matter. It's that way of seeing the world that you try to capture. You try to, those words just float through your brain, and you try to capture them and arrange them. That's just really the heart of a songwriter. There's a message or an idea that you want to communicate, and you do it in this beautiful language. And maybe it comes to you with some melody also. And a lot of times it does, and that's good. And if you can find a way to record that, you don't have to just trust your brain to remember it. But just don't be afraid to use the gift. And you may not want to label yourself a songwriter for years. Like for years, if someone said, oh, are you a songwriter? I would say, I write songs, but I'm not a songwriter. I want to encourage you to own it. It's okay to own that. It's okay to say I'm a songwriter or I'm a beginning songwriter. It's okay to say that, and just moving forward in it is going to be a lot of encouragement for you. It's this kind of thing that the more you do it, the more you feed off of it, and it starts a really positive cycle. For me, it does too. So get a piece of paper out, open a document on your computer, sit down at an instrument if you have one, and just start. You probably already have that kind of thing in you where you have an idea, or you have maybe a neat angle on something that's a common thing, like, oh, this beautiful word, or a scripture, or something in nature, or just some kind of great mental picture, and just begin to put it in words. Try saying it all different ways. Try having a main thing you want to say, and then some what would maybe become verses describing more detail or examples of the main thing you want to say. In my course, I talk a lot about putting songs together. So today, I really want to mostly just encourage your heart as a songwriter. Even if you don't have songwriting community, just begin where you are. If you're feeling super, super brave, you can put it out there for the world to hear. These days, it's never been easier. As you're recording things that you come up with, use a voice memo on your phone, if nothing else. From there, it just goes astronomically high with the options you have for recording better quality. But the simplest way, so you don't forget, is just to get that word written down and the melody recorded, because a song in its simplest form is melody and lyric. It's not the arrangement or the production. So someone who feels deterred because they don't have the ability to produce this perfect sounding thing, don't worry about that. That's actually someone else's job. Some people do it all, but a lot of people are just, they have their lane and they stick to it. And a songwriter, at the simplest form, is the person who's putting part of the words and lyrics down and then maybe adding it together. So some people do it together, some people do it all by themselves. But don't worry about the fact that you can't perform it well or play it well, because that's not songwriting. Songwriting is the first ideas. So no matter how ideas come to you, don't be afraid to play with them. As a beginning songwriter, let me encourage you to write it, but then at some point be willing to back up from it enough that you can learn to be objective. It can be very hard when you begin songwriting to not take everything personally. If you're feeling so brave and you finally share your song with someone, sometimes the first songs we write aren't as good as we think they are. Sometimes they're awesome, but sometimes people don't know how to react when someone shares a song. It may not strike them as amazing, and they certainly don't want to hurt your feelings, so there's kind of these vague, like, oh honey, that was great, especially when you share with your family and your close friends. A lot of times they might just kind of give you some real general feedback, and I know as a songwriter, I love specific feedback. I love to hear, what someone's favorite line was and why, and what did this make them think of, and what did they think about that ending, and so we love to hear the details, because as we write, we're thinking and we're hyper aware of every word that we chose, because we chose it, and it can take a little maturing in our ability to receive some criticism, or just to face indifference when it comes to something that feels very personal to us, feels like our baby, and people don't always treat it like this beautiful baby, so we have to learn to be okay with that. So sometimes that means we don't get the feedback that we want, and that is something, however, that makes community really, really nice. So if you have an option, maybe try to look for some community in real life in your area. Maybe it's your church, there's a worship team or other songwriters. Try to find out if there are, and if not, in person, your friends at school or colleagues, I don't know. Hopefully you can also find some online, because some encouragement and some camaraderie, finding kindred spirits, is huge. When I finally had that as a songwriter, I just felt so understood. And so if you kind of feel misunderstood as a songwriter right now, let me encourage you to, for one, keep at it, keep writing. Realize that the song you have sitting in your heart right now, or sitting on a page right now, is not the only song you'll write. It's probably not the best song you'll write. There are more things to come as you keep writing. So don't make your songwriting journey about the one song or the best song you think you have right now. As you continue to write and as you grow, it's sometimes surprising what we think is our best song is not everyone's favorite, and what we think was not our best song, everyone loves. So you have to be willing to let them go at some point and float on out past your own reach, because you don't really know, although we try to guess, what would be the most loved of the things that we write, the things we produce. So we keep writing, we don't make it about any one song. We just do this because we love it. There'll be new songs, there'll be new ideas to chase, There's always more to come. So don't let it stop where you are. Don't let one, poor feedback situation stop you. That's just one person. That's one person's opinion. I can tell you from having done this for a while now that, I've gotten feedback from professional people about songwriting, and two different professionals had very opposing ideas about one song. And it just goes to show that even though there are ways to kind of judge what makes a solid song, and there are ways to learn how to write a good solid song. You need to make sure the basic bones of your song are solid. You can learn that, but at some point from there beyond, so much of it is just subjective. The way it hits one person because of the word choice that you used that they loved or particularly didn't like. It's always going to be subjective. So for every person that does not like your song, there might be someone who loves it. So don't be discouraged about one feedback. I would encourage you to listen to collective feedback. If you begin to hear from other people more than once about a certain kind of thing, just be willing to consider what people say, because you can grow from criticism. Even if you don't like it, you can use it, and it can become a tool to make you a better songwriter. So as you're just beginning and navigating the waters, just keep moving forward and commit that if it's in there, you're just going to keep bringing it out. It's not always going to be comfortable. It may not always be well received. You may feel like a lone wolf sometimes, but just keep writing, keep seeking out community. It's eventually gonna feel better. You won't feel alone, and you won't feel like a beginner forever. You'll get to know yourself. That's one of the biggest encouragements. One of the biggest reasons I would tell you, exercise your songwriting muscle and keep writing, because good writers write and great writers rewrite. The more you write and the more you exercise your songwriting muscle, the more you will know your own style, and you'll become aware. And things that you learn, like nuts and bolts about songwriting, that feel like you really have to work at them at first, your ear just becomes trained, and it becomes really natural after a while, like second nature. You won't have to think so quickly. I used to focus on, wow, are my syllable counts, something's not right there. I have to match them. Or my rhymes were really matchy until I learned to be more natural and just match my vowels and not my consonants. That's just some shop talk stuff. But the more you do it, the more natural those things become. And as you learn more, as you actually learn how to communicate about songs, one of the most delightful things to find, if you're already feeling like a songwriter, you're going to realize the more you learn about songwriting is how much of it feels right to you already, because somehow you actually already really do know a lot of it. You just don't know that you do yet. So you would learn terminology and things explained in certain terms, but it already makes sense to your ear. And you can trust your ear as a great guideline. If something sounds good, you roll with it. As you come back to the editing table, reconsider, try changing words. If something feels not quite great, don't just settle. Don't settle for the first thing that rhymes, or settle for the first line that possibly can work. You challenge yourself to find the thing that says what you want to say the best. Keep things tight. Make sure different lines, or really every line, every word, comes back to support the theme and the overall thing you want to communicate the most. You don't want strands of like this stray stuff. You want to balance freshness with familiarity. So consider how much repetition you have of themes or actual lines, how often you say a line. You don't want to just chant one thing over and over, but it does feel good to come back to something familiar. That's why most songs circle back to a chorus several times. That's why a lot of choruses will repeat something maybe at the beginning and the end, or things like that. Our ear likes it when we feel like we've come full circle back to something that we knew or already heard. There's so many more tips I really would love to share with you, but most of all today, I hope that you have just been encouraged to write, to not be afraid of the process, to realize you can still move forward and begin even though you don't know everything, because you really won't know everything until you just write more, and you'll get more familiar, more comfortable, the lay of the land, the kind of ways that we have available these days to connect ways to get your songs out that we didn't have even 10 years ago. So don't be afraid of what you don't know right now. Just begin to write and do it because you love it. Exercise the muscle. Write when you're inspired. Write when you're not inspired. Write until you're inspired. The more you work it, the more familiar, the more comfortable, the quicker probably that songs will come. And the more you write, the better your songs are going to get just naturally. So please keep writing and be encouraged to keep writing. Be encouraged to pursue it if you feel it. It's a great, really satisfying thing to do. So, hey, thanks for listening again. Find me on social media because I have lots more encouragement coming to you. Also some news and updates I like to just send out once in a while. Don't forget, if you're really interested in pursuing, I have in more detail the video course that we have called Worship Songwriting. You can check it out. There's a link below. And then if you're not quite sure, I'd love to just encourage you more with the free resource that we have called Quick Tips for Songwriters. And I hope that any of those or all of those things will help you as a songwriter. Thanks again so much. Bye-bye.